All right, let's go. Welcome back. It's another episode of Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. I'm the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer, of course, coming to you after practice number 5 in training camp. And it feels like we've been back for a while now, even though we have 5 practices only under our belts. That's because the pads are on. We saw the O-line and D-line battle for the first time for real, playing real football here on Monday, July 28th. We are live here on the YouTube channel. PL on NFL is the handle. Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. Subscribe, rate, and review. Hit those likes while you are here. You can ask comments and questions in the queue. We will get to all of those. I already see a super chat or two rolling in. If you purchase a super chat or super sticker, we will go to your comment or question first. But I want to start by thanking our sponsors, MyBookie, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and Sal Loretta for Men, luxury menswear and tailoring in Midland Park, New Jersey. And I want to start by mentioning my big bet of the day. My big bet of the day is brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie has a ton of unique features that other brands do not. You think about the money bag, the partner picks, daily bet boosts. Obviously, you guys know if you play those NFL games, the money lines, the parlays on Sundays, my Pats picks last season, I believe they rolled in at 55% or so. I have to check the exact math. But if you're tailing me there, you're going to win with MyBookie. This year, if you go to the MyBookie website, the link in all my profiles, and you use the promo code Leonard, you will get some significant welcome bonuses there as a first-time subscriber, and you'll get to playing, whether it's in the casino or on the sports book. I promise there's something there for you. And my big bet of the day, brought to you by MyBookie, is a double down on what we talked about last week. It's a double down on Abdul Carter, the number 3 overall pick, the pass rusher out of Penn State, being a clear X factor and difference maker for this team this season. We saw the first day in pads, they used him out on the edge, but also on the interior at times alongside Dexter Lawrence with the first team. They're giving him all he can handle and seeing what he does well, what he still needs to learn. Clearly a lot to work on in the running game still. There's no doubt about it for any rookie, for any defensive lineman, there's going to be. And if there was anything he was known for maybe having to work on coming into the NFL, it was overrunning some of those running plays because, as Brian Daboll said, he's a see ball, get ball kind of guy. And Carter is hunting the quarterback first and foremost on from there. But the motor, the aggressiveness, the energy of this player, and frankly, it's just as impressive when you hear the way that his teammates talk about him as much as anything that he does on the field. Like, we spoke to Brian Burns today at the podium about Abdul Carter, and he says he's a dog. He does what he has to do. He's about his business. All it comes down to is just making sure he's clean with the calls. So it's moving a little bit faster right now. But as far as raw athleticism and traits, he's got it. I really don't have to talk too much on him. Y'all have seen it. And then later he said, I don't want to do too much more talking about Abdul because he will show you I ain't got to talk about him. So this is a veteran pass rusher, one of the highest paid pass rushers in the league, in Brian Burns, who has seen Abdul Carter in pads one time so far as a teammate, along with just spring work and early training camp. And Burns is already saying, and remember, Abdul Carter, now he's not here to take Brian Burns' job tomorrow or Kayvon Thibodeau's job tomorrow, but he is here to take somebody's job on the edge sooner or later, or sooner than later, I should say. And here is Brian Burns, one of those veterans, saying, this kid looks like he's it. This kid looks like he's got it. And wait till you see it on the field, right? He's essentially saying, I don't got to say anything. You'll see the production on Sundays. And I think that when I say my big bet, brought to you by MyBookie, my big bet of the day for 2 days running now is on Abdul Carter as a difference maker, because you look at what the Dallas Cowboys have going right now, where Tyler Guyton, their tackle, banged up. Initially, there was a fear of an ACL. Reportedly now, according to ESPN, it's a bone fracture, and he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. They've been rotating some linemen on the interior as well, trying to find their best 5 up front. That's a week 2 opponent for the Giants, a Dallas Cowboys team who typically more talented and has the Giants number, but could they be gettable up front? Is the Giants defensive front with Abdul Carter in the mix now, along with Lawrence, Burns, and Thibodeau, is that Giants defensive front going to be too much for the Cowboys offensive line to hold? And therefore, even if the Giants are mismatched in other places, will that be enough for them to get that type of game? Like, this is how you have to start thinking right off the bat about this season. You know, I'm the first person to say I picked the Giants to win 3 games this year, and I didn't see much promise, much opportunity for them going into this schedule. But when you watch Abdul Carter, and if you look at how some of these pieces are moving around in division, Terry McLaurin in Washington still not signed. That's your week 1 opponent. That's their top receiver and top offensive weapon of Jaden Daniels. So you think about that, and you think about the Giants and what they have going and some promise that they're showing. That's encouraging, and that's reason to believe that maybe the Giants have a chance to get off on a better foot than we believed early on this spring. And like I said, number 3 overall pick, you expect production out of a number 3 pick. You expect a rookie pass rusher like Abdul Carter, if you're going to draft him that high, to make a clear and obvious impact on regular season games early. But just because it's expected doesn't mean that when you see it on the field that it isn't that much more refreshing and exciting, because, you know, they drafted Kayvon Thibodeau number 5 overall several years ago. There's a lot of things that Thibodeau does well. Not a transcendent player, though. You think about Aiden Hutchinson, who was drafted a few picks higher than Thibodeau in that draft. And then the motor, the energy, the aggressiveness, the violence. That's a word that keeps coming back into my brain that Joe Shane used to talk about Abdul at the press conference after they drafted him. These are just things that just seem to be at another level with this player. It's still early. He still has a long way to go. And like I said, in the run game, he's still working. Like little Jordan Humphrey, the wide receiver, delivered a crushing crackback block on Abdul Carter today in the running game, eliminated him from a play, which led to a solid gain in the running game for the offense, which we'll get to in a second. So those are plays where Carter, you know, he didn't look like he even saw it coming. And that's about studying the film. That's about X's and O's. And that is how you go from just being a situational player who can make an impact to being an every down guy, right? Being able to be relied upon in those spots. But when you have the kind of traits that Carter has, where he can wreck a drive, wreck a game, you know, it's just hard to keep those types of guys off the field. And, you know, the other day, I believe it was Sunday now as we sit here, it's Monday now. So on day 4 of practice, pads weren't on yet, but Abdul Carter got to go against Jermaine Illuminor with the first team as the left end when Brian Burns took a practice off after that collision with Wan'Dale Robinson. And Carter arguably could have blown up that drive. Like if the defense was tackling up players to the ground and that was live, he might have blown up the drive 3 times. And so, you know, he had the spin move working, and listen, Illuminor was working him early on and catching some of his moves. But as Brian Burns said, like Carter was setting things up for later in the drive. He definitely would have had at least a sack and 2 pressures, if not 2 sacks and a pressure, if it had been live football. And so, you know, you can hear the excitement in my voice. Like there's a handful of players that I've seen on the Giants in my time since covering them in 2016, who, when I go out on the field, I'm thinking, what are they going to do today that is incredibly special that I know no one else on the field can do, right? And they're just unique. Everybody knows it. Everyone in the Giants building knows it. Like I said, the idea that Brian Burns would rave like that about a rookie who has played 1 practice in pads, like that means even more than I'm probably saying right now. Like it's hard to describe how significant that is. So that's my big bet, brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie is the sports book for you. Promise you, whether it's NFL, casino, and all the different daily bet boosts, say that 5 times fast, as well as partner picks, the money bag. The casino, you know, is definitely where you'll find me. Also, if you're a WWE fan, if you're a wrestling fan, this is without a doubt the best place to bet wrestling. So if you're into wrestling, you're into the action, it's the best place to bet WWE, UFC. And like I said, you can tail my Pat's picks. So you're going to go to MyBookie. The link is in all my profiles, and use the promo code Leonard, Leonard, my last name, for the code. And while we're on Big Bet, you know, I want to shout out, and this is, let's say, as part of my monologue, twofold, because I promised that I was going to rave about Abdul Carter, and he deserves it. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is the Giants' offensive line after this first day in pads. And we'll get to your questions right after that, as well as tell you about some of our sponsors. Mike Ross actually dropped a super chat in here, so I'm going to go right to that after this point. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been covering the Giants for a while, and every year we're sitting here talking about frustrations with the offensive line, and all of it has been justified. Now, it's only one day, but on day one, the Giants' offensive line, without Andrew Thomas, who's still on the PUP list, they were as impressive as far as winning physical battles, showing aggressiveness, and asserting themselves as I've seen in practice in a long time. Now, the qualifier, the asterisk is there's a couple of them. One is that Dexter Lawrence's snaps were limited. He was in and out of the lineup with the first team. The other thing is that the defense is not allowed to tackle to the ground at the moment. So like Brian Burns said when he was raving about Cam Scatterbo, which we'll also get to, Brian Burns said, hey, the kid looks good. He runs tough, and he likes everything about him. But he said, next thing is going to be to show me when we're allowed to tackle him or when it's a preseason game and he's going up against another team. Because right now, when a guy hits a hole, even if the defender's there, they have to just not wrap him up and let him keep running, and they can keep churning their legs. So it's a much different game for an offensive player with the ball. But I'm just going to say, like across the board, James Hudson, the left tackle, who definitely plays like he has a screw loose, but has a contagious attitude and aggressiveness that seems to be seeping into them a little bit, which is good. John Runyon Jr. at left guard. John Michael Schmitz today put Bobby Okereke on the ground on a screen pass. Evan Neal and Greg Van Roten competing for that right guard job. And Evan Neal, a guy that players are raving about, Jermaine Illuminor, Runyon, both telling us some things that were interesting about Evan Neal. We can get into that later in the chat. And Jermaine Illuminor as well. Even some of the backups, like I'm talking not just about the 11-11 periods, but also the one-on-one periods. Like Austin Schlottman, the backup center, had a good one-on-one period, a few great reps in individuals one-on-one. So did Jake Kubas, a reserve guard that the team likes a lot, who plays with a lot of nasty. So, listen, it wasn't perfect. It was far from it. Brian Daboll actually erupted on the offense during a period where they were backed up against the goal line because they kept having false starts. Josh Azudu at left tackle with the second team. And yes, I did say Josh Azudu at left tackle with the second team had a false start. It also appeared that Thomas Fidone had a false start. They didn't call it, but the flag was down. They let the play go. But Fidone false started, and also the other reserve tight end, that was Jermaine Terry II also. So Daboll kind of was giving it to the offense about, stay ready. What is this? Like, we have to have some poise here and not jump. Rookie Darius Alexander, the defensive lineman, showed some violent, in a good way, snaps in one-on-one, but also jumped off sides during the live 11-on-11 period. The practice ended with the offense, the first team offense, 2 carries with Cam Scatterbo and 1 with Tyrone Tracy Jr., them gaining a first down with 3 carries on 3 downs. John Michael Schmitz and the O-lineman standing up and pointing for that first down at the end of the drive, and clearly winning the day, though it is early. But, listen, we're always sitting here talking about frustrations or concerns when it comes to the O-line. And they deserve, I know it's one day of film, and it's the first day in pads when the O-linemen are kind of chomping at the bit to get the pads on and then play the way they know how and they can. And the D linemen have kind of been getting the best of them without the pads, have been tugging their jerseys. And so now they have to adjust. So it'll even out probably and go back and forth. But the O-line deserves credit for the work they did in this first padded practice. Mike Ross, thank you so much, Mike, for checking in with the super chat. He says, I've seen a lot of people freak out and say that Jaxson Dart is Daniel Jones 2.0. What are your thoughts on his development so far? That's a great question, Mike. It is very early to freak out and pigeonhole Jaxson Dart into anything right now. I think the fairest depiction of where Jaxson is right now is that early on in training camp, he was struggling and up and down, kind of like he was late in the spring. And so it kind of looked like he was drinking through a fire hose, trying to implement Brian Daboll's offense, take it to the field. And maybe even if he knew what he was supposed to be seeing, he wasn't seeing it quickly enough on the field. But on Sunday in the 4th practice and on Monday in the 5th practice, Dart has shown some clear improvement. Now, it's not, to say that he has played incredibly in those practices would be, I think, a stretch as well. Just like saying that he was horrible in some of the other ones would be going too far because he's a rookie still learning. I think that what we've seen in the last couple of days is what Dart told us himself. He's getting more comfortable with the installs, with the plays that they're putting in. And here's the most interesting part to me, Mike. Dart said that he doesn't want to play like a robot. And even though he doesn't want to make mistakes, he always wants to be aggressive without being reckless. And he wants to be able to put the dagger in, I think is how he put it, when he is able. And so in practice, he's going to go for those things and make those throws and, take those chances, so to speak, because that is the type of player he is. If you were going to compare him to Daniel Jones in any way, I would say Jones definitely had that similar idea of obviously sometimes it resulted in him like putting his head down and getting injured while running, that type of thing. But it was that competitive spirit of like, okay, if it's best for the team, I'm going to try it, even if it's at the detriment of myself, right? Dart hasn't done anything like that. But if you recall, Joe Shane said that he put his head down like into a linebacker during the Senior Bowl. And it was kind of like something that he said, like he didn't want to see translate into the pros type thing. But that gives you a window into how competitive Dart is, how tough he is. So in some of those ways, I could see where those comparisons come from. But it's still very early with Jaxson. And here's what he said about not wanting to play like a robot. Okay. So he said, I've had continued growth each and every day. I feel like it just slowed down a little bit for me. The first day and even some of the second day, there were some plays I hadn't run before. You're getting mixed in with different groups you don't have a ton of reps with, and you're trying to get the timing down with everybody. But I feel like Sunday, I felt confident in the installs we had. And at the same time, the coaches gave me a lot of freedom. Now, here's the key point that I heard. The coaches gave me a lot of freedom, so I was able to make some checks that I wanted to. And I feel like that allowed me to play faster and be able to make quicker decisions. So then later, asked about playing aggressively, he said, I don't want to play like a robot. That's my play style. When I'm on the field, I'm going to be aggressive. We don't want to be reckless, though. So when you have opportunities to put the dagger in, that's what you have to do. And it's situational based on the offense. So one thing I heard there was that Dart, in conversations with the coaching staff and in the install for practices number 4 and 5, has become a little bit of more of a part of not just the install and what plays are going in, but also earning their trust to be able to make checks to create comfortable situations for himself and kind of start dictating the terms and not just trying to run the play that's on the sheet or on the board. And so Dart seemed to be saying, in my opinion, Mike, that he understands playing in structure, but he wants some freedom within it and that he reacts well to that. And so what we saw on Sunday when he's saying that he had a little bit more freedom to make those checks, what we saw was him more decisive with his first read, the ball coming out once his back foot hit the ground. He wasn't holding the ball, hesitating. There was one pass today that took him a while to get the ball out on, where he was like searching for it down the field and he should have just checked it down to the left. And he ended up taking what would have been a sack when Amir Smith-Marset, the slot receiver, was open. But I think what he's doing is he is a guy who will throw deep, likes to go deep. Like if you remember, even though Daniel Jones does throw deep, eventually he got kind of shell-shocked into not doing so because of how much he got hit, because of what the results were when he was throwing deep eventually in some of those situations. He was getting hit when he was throwing, or whether he hesitated and threw it into traffic, whatever the case may be. So Dart is confident and does make those throws and does search it down the field. And I like that. And I find it interesting that he describes being more a part of the conversation and that freedom that he wants and is now getting. And I think that the improvement we've seen in these last couple of days from him is encouraging. and it may reveal that more the kind of player that he can be than what like the early few days did, is what I would say. Today, his best throw and play was a nice throw up the middle, kind of into traffic, Mike, to Zach Pascal. And Pascal caught the ball. It was a good, nice catch, like a hard throw from Dart, like a nice zip to it, kind of on the right hash marks, Pascal going left to right. And then the corner defending him, face mask Pascal right after it. So it basically would have been a 15-yard completion plus 15 yards on the face mask, but was a nice throw by Dart with, kind of a muddy pocket, let's say. So that was good to see. Thank you for the super chat, Mike. Good reminder for everybody. If you want a comment or question answered first, purchase a super chat or a super sticker. Another great way to support the channel, though, is to support our sponsors. So that's MyBookie, hooks, rubs, and spices, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and Estate 98 Coffee. We'll tell you about our sponsors in a little bit, but let's get to some more questions first. Ken in Wisconsin says, Pat, this whole team feels different this year. Can you comment on what vibes you're picking up on at camp? Yeah, something new I could share with you is that I was talking to John Runyon Jr. today. By the way, Runyon Jr. revealed that the surgery he was coming back from was ankle surgery in December. So he had a high ankle sprain in December in the Saints game, and he had surgery on that ankle. So that was the surgery that ended up keeping him out all spring or most of the spring, but he's fine now. But I bring up Runyon Jr. because I asked him about Russell Wilson's impact right away, joining the team and running the offense. And Runyon said that he feels like Wilson has been the leader, the exact kind of leader that the offense needs as far as being vocal. And, that applies to directly being in the huddle, instilling confidence in the players and in the team and in the offense, those types of things. And, I think that was an interesting point by Runyon because there are a lot of young players on this team, and that is a veteran lineman saying that the vocal nature of Wilson's, how he conducts himself, how he plays, and how he runs the offense, he feels is having a positive effect on the offense. And really the team is following Wilson's message and him as their North Star in a lot of ways this year. So that's a message from one of the Giants' key veterans, of kind of what the vibes feel like. Brian Burns, though, and Dexter Lawrence have both said it best. Brian Burns said it today. Like he said, we look good on paper, but we ain't done shit yet. And I think that was exactly what Dexter Lawrence said in so many words to the defense prior to the start of training camp. And that's really like the phrase I keep using for people, because I've been asked in interviews questions like this about how the feeling is here, because it isn't a normal camp. The phrase I would use is cautious optimism is what I feel around here. And listen, the energy of a guy like Carter, the fact that Neighbors looks unguardable out there, the fact that Cam Scatterbo now is getting first team reps and making the most of them. Like, this is good young energy to have on a team. Will it translate into wins? We'll see. But that's kind of the excitement and the optimism where it's coming from. The cautious part is obviously kind of the urgency and the nerves of the pressure behind like the knowledge of what's going to happen to everybody if they don't get results. Hunter says, what's going on, Pat? Who do you think looks sharp compared to last year, and who is poised for a better year? Hunter, good question. This will bring me to my next sponsor segment, and that is the Boom Impact of the day. This is brought to you by, as you see here, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this into any drink, coffee, tea. I put it in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally feel like a little extra kick or boost when I drink Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. The best product now, though, not just the supplement, which you can see over my shoulder, which I love, but their best summer product right now, like for these hot days, is their cold teas. They've got the Sweet Dreams, the Rise and Shine, the Midday Boost. What you're going to do is you're going to go to boomchaga.com and you're going to use the code Talkin Ball 25 You can see it right here on the screen, Talkin Ball 25, and you'll get 25% off your first order on the subscribe and save option. So start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. I know plenty of our subscribers have tried it and liked it and ordered it. Please be the next one to do so. Supporting our sponsors is the best way to support Talkin Ball. So, Hunter, to answer your question, Boom Impact, I would say, today a name that jumps to mind is Art Green, the reserve corner. Listen, the Giants right now, they signed Paulson Adebo. He looks the part, an exciting addition to their defense. You have the competition at CB2 between Deonte Banks and Cordell Flott. But on the second string and with the reserves, and this goes back to the spring, Art Green's been a guy who's really stepped up. He made the play of the day here on Monday, a one-handed, left-handed interception of Jameis Winston on a throw downfield intended for Jordan Bly, the wide receiver, kind of just outside the right hash marks. Green's the kind of player, you look at like Bryce Ford Wheaton, a key special teamer going down, and the Giants signed Gunnar Olszewski, of course, the punt returner, back to the team. He spent all of last season on IR. But these are players, guys like Art Green, these are guys who you need like a reserve corner to be a valuable special teamer who is also more than competent if he needs to go in, if you're one of your starting quarters, get down and play 30 reps in a game. And so I'm not saying Art Green's there, we'll see, but he's come to play this year. Like there's no question about it. And that type of playmaking it's good to see because it then allows you to kind of highlight all the little things that you've seen from a player like that. So a lesser known name than people would bring up more often, Hunter, but Art Green's a guy who I think special teams and hopefully on defense can stand out, because then you look at the second team corners and, like Trey Hawkins, for example, had been running with the second team as well. And he got banged up in this practice, went over with the trainers, was jogging, had his helmet in his hand, eventually wasn't playing. Hawkins also has had a tough camp in general. Frankly, it still looks too big for him at times. So the Giants need that depth, right? That depth is key. So, Hunter, that's who I'm going to go with right now. I'm going to go with Art Green. And because we're talking about one-handed catches, let's throw Darius Slayton into the mix because he also made a one-handed catch on Sunday on a beautiful deep ball from Russell Wilson down the left sideline. Interestingly enough, Darius Slayton, a left-handed person, like writes and throws lefty, and made the one-handed catch with his left hand. I found that interesting. Also, a quick shout out to Javon Holland, who intercepted Wilson on a pass breakup, like a batted pass on a blitz by Drew Phillips on Sunday as well. The Giants need takeaways, and Phillips made the initial play, but the ball was kind of fluttering awkwardly way above Holland's head, and he snatched it out of the air, intended for Neighbors, and took it to the house and stuffed that ball into the turnover chest. So, that was good to see. I think Hunter also, like Evan Neal is a guy who I think the Giants need to be on that list. It looks like they're really working him in there at right guard often. Like Van Roten is back. Van Roten is profiling as the starter, but the Giants seem really committed to getting Neal significant reps at that right guard spot. And then they switch him over to left with the second team. John Runyon Jr. was saying that Neal is, continues to work on that idea of as a guard, you need to cover up the man you're blocking. You can't, like as a tackle, push them to the outside. So as a tackle, at least you can push that rusher outside and maybe gain an extra second there and force them on a different angle. As a guard, you can't let a guy steer him to your right or left, because if they get past you, the quarterback's right behind you. So you have to learn to cover it up. And that's something technique-wise Neal's been talking to Runyon and others about and has been working on. And when he does set his feet and get his hands on the person rushing him and cover them up there, he's so strong that he's very effective there. So there's some names to give you there, Hunter. Jacob, great to see you as always. Jacob says, smack that like and sub button for the fellas on your way in. I appreciate you saying that, Jacob, as always. Jacob, Hunter, Ken, all you guys, diehards here on the chat. And Jacob always reminds you this, and it's something to keep in mind, is if you subscribe to the channel, listen, it's free to subscribe. You can have notifications on for when we go live. We typically go live Mondays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, as well as after every Giants game. So those lives after the games are a lot of fun as well. So looking forward to the first one after the Giants preseason opener against the Buffalo Bills. But please while we're here as well. If you hit the like buttons, if you like what we're doing and like what we're talking about here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard about the Giants, about the NFL in general, answering your questions, hit those likes. And that just feeds that YouTube algorithm. It tells everybody out there that if you're a Giants fan and you want to talk about your team and you want insight from one of the beat writers and one of the NFL columnists, veteran NFL columnists who is there every day on the sideline, in the locker room, talking to the players with sources inside the building and out and around the league. This is just something that I really think that as much as, I love this. I love doing this, and I love bringing this information to you guys. I do think spending every Monday and Thursday night here, as well as post games, you will learn at least a handful, let's say 3 to 4 to 5 things every week that you did not know about the New York Giants. Because I'm just around them so often, have relationships with the players and with the staffers, with the front office and the coaching staff. And we are here to give you the 360-degree coverage of your team. All right. And another super chat pops into the queue. I'll get to that. I know there's some of you who have been patient, so I'll get to you as well. Elias, great to hear from you. Great to see you. Elias says, hey, Pat, glad to see one of these live again. Love your work. Question, describe your thoughts on these quotes from neighbors, reporters, etc., about the feeling in the camp being different. Do you feel it too? Elias, I would say that I feel differently now after 5 days into camp than I did prior to training camp. I do feel more, I do sense the cautious optimism, and I do see the reasons for it on the field, which is why I'm reporting it as such. I would not tell you the offensive line had a strong day if they didn't. I would not sell you false hope. Everybody here knows that even if somebody had a good day, if I felt like it was smoke and mirrors and a house of cards, I would tell you, right? That's what I think, what I like about this chat, and I hope you enjoy here, is that I'm going to be brutally honest, and we're not going to sugarcoat anything here. And there are some people who will hear it and say at times when I get critical that I'm being negative or it's too harsh. But the reality is, when things get better, when things get good, and I share that with you and tell you, I'm being genuine and honest and true, and that it's coming from a place of honesty and from clear insight and observation and analysis, because I'm just not going to sell you a bag of lies, right? So listen, is it going to translate? Is it going to translate to wins? Is it going to translate to results immediately? We don't know that. Russell Wilson, the offense, let's say, so today the offensive line controlled the running game more so than the defensive line did. Everybody had some good runs. Like when I say everybody, I mean Cam Scatterbo, I mean Devin Singletary, I mean Tyrone Tracy Jr., and that was first and second offensive line units creating some holes, moving some bodies, and getting some of the better of the defense, showing some attitude and aggressiveness. Loved it. Now, Russell Wilson the day before hits a deep ball to Slayton. Next play, intercepted, pick six, Javon Holland, right? Today, you had some good plays. You had an incomplete play action. Then you have a complete screen pass. Then you have where Wilson has to tuck the ball and run because no one's open and the pass rush is getting there, right? Like you have the 13-play drive the day before the pads were on, when, yes, they end up moving the ball and getting into the red zone and scoring, but both the first and second string offense, they ran quarterback sneaks with no pads on, and you're not allowed to tackle to get into the end zone. You want to see them score. You want to see them hit a big play into the end zone, hit pay dirt for 6. You don't know if the drive would have continued if Abdul Carter was allowed to actually finish those pass rushes, right? So yes, Elias, the short answer is yes. There are things that make this feel different. And I think it starts with Abdul Carter's energy, and there's just like a palpable excitement about the fact that he could really be a game changer. And we'll see what that looks like as far as where is he playing every single down, right? Like right now, I think if they played a game tomorrow, I think Abdul Carter would be on the field maybe as the fourth D lineman next to Dexter Lawrence, frankly, or maybe he would be an off-ball linebacker on first down, interior on second down, edge on third down, right? Or maybe by the time we get to week 1, he's just starting at the edge. These are the levels of excitement that is coming to Giants camp that is legitimate. Scadaboo also, again, this is why like the excitement is cautious. The excitement needs to be validated and also kind of harnessed and reined in at the moment, is because like Cam Scadaboo looks good when people start hitting and he starts facing other teams. Is he big enough? Is he going to be able to weather the hits that he's taking? Is he going to be able to drive the pile at his size? Carter looks explosive, but if he's not able to defend the run consistently, is he going to be able to be an every down player that isn't going to be exposed in that part of the game, right? Those are all things that we're going to learn. But Elias, here's the bottom line. The best teams in the NFL, the teams that compete, the teams that win, the teams that make those big plays in all these close games, because so many of these games are close games, they're the ones that have the talent on the field. They're the ones that have those 1, 2, or 3 guys on the field who make all the difference in the world. And Dexter Lawrence can be that guy. Malik Neighbors looks like he has a chance to be that guy. Abdul Carter looks like he has a chance to be that guy. It can flip easily one way or the other, Elias, right? Because on the one hand, the excitement really could have you coming out of your shoes as the Giants, as a fan of this team that's been losing for so many years now. This could have you so excited because there's just hope in certain areas that haven't been there in previous years. But also it's like a nervous energy as well. And I describe that too for like what's inside the building, because if it doesn't happen right away, and if they hit the skids early and don't get one of those two against Washington or Dallas, then it could go the other way very fast, right? So it's all building to, what are the results on the field in week 1 against Washington? What are the results in week 2 against Dallas? Is this Giants team able to take its excitement, turn it into production, which results in confidence and consistency, right? But yeah, I think you can hear it in my voice, Elias, there's a lot to talk about right now with this team, and a lot more positive to talk about than there has been, at least at this point. Barb says, I see a week 1 win. Let's go. All right, Barb. Love the energy. Joey B says, what's up, Pat? The wife's like, is it Talkin Ball night in bed? See, Joey B is a diehard. No matter where he is, he could be in the car. He could be in bed next to his wife, watching TV with the phone, weighing into Talkin Ball, chatting it up with us. He could be on stage at the Comedy Cellar, whatever it is. Joey B, a diehard. He says, how does it feel to have Gunnar Olszewski back? And how is Neil looking at guard? I've heard good things about him. Yeah, I talked about Neil already. So I think I answered that question. Basically, Jermaine Illuminar basically said, listen, he can do things because of his size. And when he gets his hands on people at the guard position, he can really move people. And that's an exciting thing for him to see, and for the Giants to see. Really his move inside has been overdue for sure. So hopefully that works out. Definitely would be an enormous boost, because, Neil has always been a pretty good run blocker. Like if he gets his helmet, his hands, his body, his shoulders on a defensive lineman, like he's moving that person back, right? It's just about getting there. And also, of course, in the passing game, it's always been a challenge, especially out there on an island on the outside at right tackle. And so, some exciting things, some potential there from Neil for sure, Joe. They've been working him at both spots, right guard with the first team, left guard with the second team. So cross-training him. And, just to hear Illuminar talk about it, sounds like they like the returns early on. How does it feel to have Gunnar Olszewski back? I would say, this is a guy who, when he's healthy, is their punt returner. He does not replace Bryce Ford-Wheaton as a special teamer, as a guy on coverage units who is like a jack of all trades, a guy who can, be key on like field goal block and punt coverage and things like that. So he does replace Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who tore his Achilles, unfortunately, the other day in practice. He does replace him on the depth chart or on the roster as far as 1 in, 1 out. but not the same role, not the same player, of course. By the way, something to point out about Bryce. Bryce Ford Wheaton tore his Achilles running a route, and then he basically knew that the Giants were, excuse me, hold on I got to sneeze. Holding it in. So Ford Wheaton knew in the moment when he went down that he was hurt and he could barely walk. So this was on Sunday. But with the offense on the field with Jaxson Dart and the offense trying to get to the line, having no timeouts in a situation, it was like end of second quarter, under 20 seconds to go. He knew that they didn't have a timeout to use for his injury. And so he got up and hobbled up like on one leg and on his bad leg to the line just to get set so they could spike the ball, and then collapsed in a heap. So a team player to the end for sure. Bryce Ford Wheaton, thoughts go out to him. Hate seeing that for a player. Absolutely hate seeing that. All right, now time to tell you guys about Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices is a product that is near and dear to our heart here at Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. So this is Jared's company. Jared is a diehard Giants fan, and he is a regular here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Always in the chats, always supporting us, and loves this team. Lifelong Giants fan. He's from Houston. His favorite players: Lawrence Taylor, Pepper Johnson, Mark Bavaro, Hostetler, OBJ, Eli Manning, Brandon Jacobs. The list goes on and on. And he was telling me the other day he's pumped about what Tracy, Dart, Kayvon Thibodeau, Scadaboo, and Darius Alexander will be able to do for the team, as well as Evan Neal switch to guard and Jalen Hyatt's potential at wide receiver. I tell you all this to tell you that when I say support our sponsors, who better than to support than a Giants fan who is a talking baller himself? That is Jared from Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Here he is right now, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices barbecue seasoning. He says, hello, Pat and chat. Hope you are all doing well and planning some good food cooks for this football season. And that's what we were just talking about here now, Jared. So listen, guys, think about the Buffalo game, the preseason game. You might go to the stadium on the road. You might wait for that game at MetLife Stadium against the Jets. Whatever it is, whether you're home gating at home in the driveway or out front or out back in the yard, or whether you're hosting the Giants fan tailgating crew in the lot, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices gives your grill serious flavor with their bold seasoning lineup. All natural, no junk, and big Texas barbecue flavor to keep fans coming back for seconds. Think smoked wings, cheesy nachos, flat top burgers, ribs, brisket sandwiches, all dusted with Hooks signature rubs. Use the code TalkinBall. That's it. On hooksrub.com. That's hooksrub.com. Use that code TalkinBall25, guys. You get 15% off, a 15% discount, and you'll find the full lineup and some tailgate recipes there, as well as some great gear. I know I've showed you guys this before. I'm wearing it again today. This is the brisket shirt. Just says brisket for days. I love it. This is a great summer shirt. Everyone in my family has one in a different color. We've been wearing it to 4th of July cookouts and to the beach all summer long. I love the gear. The product's even better than the gear, but the gear is sweet. Here is Smokin' Sweetness, one of the signature flavors. This is an award-winning flavor, one of several award-winning flavors that Hooks, Rubs, and Spices has. So like I said, go to hooksrub.com. Talkin Ball is the code. And if you want to hit them up on Instagram, it's at hooksrub. They're there on TikTok, on Instagram, and even on YouTube. Subscribe, activate your pregame playlist, and join the flavor family. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. We smoke meat. Thank you so much to Jared for supporting us. And like I said, guys, if you're going to support Talkin Ball, I ask you to please support our sponsors. And who better to support than a Giants fan and one of our own? That's Jared from Houston. It's Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Go check them out now. And, in honor of Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, I'd say that our sweetness segment, in honor of the smoke and sweetness flavor, our sweetness segment today is going to be about what I think would sweeten the pot for the Giants. What do I think they need to do right now on their roster? I see all the questions in the queue. If I didn't get to you, I will. Don't worry about it, guys. I see you there. Like I said, comment or question that you really want answered or you don't have time to hang around, purchase a Super Chat or Super Sticker, and I'll jump on it. But otherwise, I'll talk a little bit about my sweetener brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, and then we will get back into the queue. So my sweetener brought to you by Hooks is adding a wide receiver. And I know this has been a conversation in Giants land, has been ever since Gabe Davis visited. But I'm telling you guys, you look at this wide receiver depth chart, it makes too much sense for Gabe Davis to be on this team ASAP. Here's why. You look on the field right now. Now, Jalen Hyatt's back doing individual drills. Still not in team, so I think he's missed 3 team practices straight with what looked like something to his leg, whether it's calf, hamstring, quad, whatever it is. So Jalen Hyatt's been kind of on the shelf. Wan'Dale Robinson, Daboll says is nothing serious, but he just got Dane Belton knee to almost like a dead leg to his quad area. So you got to imagine that's some sort of bruise, but so he did not practice on Monday. Again, Daboll said nothing serious, but something to consider. Daquan Felton, wide receiver as well, was on the side, not practicing today. So that was 3 guys already down. And when you look on the field with them just having 1 or 2 guys banged up, behind Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, you have basically players who are still trying to prove they can do it. Like Amir Smith-Marset, definitely an NFL player, an electric returner, frankly, last year, looked great. And so like you think about adding Gunnar Olszewski, you're adding, good competition and also some reliability and some explosiveness, hopefully both in the punt and return games for sure. So that's encouraging. But as far as offense goes, Smith-Marset being their primary backup slot receiver, then you have Bo Collins, an undrafted rookie, as a guy who's really the next man up on the outside as far as snaps go with the first team. Once you get past Slayton and Neighbors, the Giants don't have much depth behind those guys. Gabe Davis or a player like that would add an immediate and obvious upgrade and also begin to slot some of these players more where they belong on the depth chart as far as receiving and playing on the offense goes, because you definitely don't want to have guys playing above their level. You want guys slotted appropriately, playing with the appropriate units, and not leaning too hard in key spots and key positions on players who shouldn't be being asked to do that in the first place. If a guy's a return specialist, he shouldn't have to suddenly step in the second quarter of week 1 and be a slot receiver for 3 quarters. If Bo Collins has an encouraging early camp, that doesn't mean it's going to obviously immediately translate to him being able to, let's say, step in for Darius Slayton in the second half of week 1 against Washington if he has to and produce. So the Hooks, Rubs, and Spices sweetener of the day, what would sweeten the pot? What do the Giants need right now at the moment that it looks like on the field when I stand and I watch them practice? Where could they add a piece immediately? I see that wide receiver depth as being something they need to improve. And that's why Gabe Davis is still heavily on my radar, especially after he said on the Up and Adams show the other day that Russell Wilson went to that dinner when he visited as a free agent. And he's clearly somebody who, knowing the offense well already from being in Buffalo with Daboll, is someone who could assimilate probably better than most. All right. So let's get back to our question queue. Patrick says, I think teams will take the Giants lightly and that will cost them easy wins they mark down. Interesting. And yes, Carter plays multiple positions on defense. Joe, thank you for asking this. Joe says, Pat, how are you feeling? Are you over the heat-related issues? You need one of those big, giant straw hats and put daily news on it. Get one of those ice vests and carry around Igloo with Gatorade. He says, also wear sunscreen, SPF 99. Joe, thanks for saying that and asking. So, yeah, for those of you who are not aware, I nearly crashed out at practice on Friday. So this would have been the third practice of Giants training camp. I felt myself feeling faint and woozy. And, it was definitely dehydration and heat exhaustion, really. Fortunately, I caught it early enough and I stepped back into the shade, and some of the Giants staffers noticed that I wasn't feeling well. And I said I was going to go back into the air conditioning. And this was while practice is going on. So I went back into the air conditioning, sat down. Giants brought me some packets, like some electrolyte packets and some water, some Gatorades, which I'd already been chugging during practice, but turned out really I had a giant iced coffee in the morning and it was just too late for me to hydrate, I guess, because it was so hot and humid as well. And so the most interesting part of it was, for precautionary measures, the Giants really took good care of me and let me use their cooling station to basically get myself back to normal and back to level and feeling comfortable again. And, I was really grateful for that. Dion Dargan, Peyton, everybody with the Giants, PR staff and the Giants staff checking on me throughout the day. Really appreciated that. It was very nice of them to follow up. And, I was back at it, but definitely took the weekend to recharge. Like I was back on the field on Sunday, but Saturday, man, I was mush. Like I did not leave the house on Saturday, took naps during the day, watched Happy Gilmore too. But that heat exhaustion, even though I caught it and I didn't exactly pass out, it was scary. And it was like my body was extra drained the day after from going through it, if that makes sense. It was almost like I was more run down the day after than a few hours after it happened. But feeling better, trying to concentrate more on drinking water. I have been doing a good job, but I'm also a big coffee drinker. So, as you know, from all my Estate 98 promos. So, trying to balance that out, especially in this summer heat. Thank you for asking that, Joe. I really appreciate that. Very kind of you. Jay Fed says, I've been saying if the Giants defense is for real, they will win games. Jay Fed, I don't disagree. As far as how a defense can impact the game, I just always qualify that with their offense has to be, average to win those games too. If their offense does not take a meaningful step forward, then you're going to be left with a defense that is effective but frustrated, So I agree. Like I think what you're saying too is like maybe this pass rush really can put the Giants in position to win games. The offense has to do its part though. Like that's where the bigger step has to happen. Patrick says, I was 19 when we got Taylor and it resulted in a 9-7 season. GCN says Pat Carter is the best player on the defense already. Now he's a top 3 draft pick. Tibbs is nowhere close to him. 20 sacks this year. 20. Oh my goodness. Well, Dexter is the best player on the defense, but Carter could be one day in the next couple of years here. Let's see. Patrick thinks they can win 8 or 9 games. The key is the offensive line. Yes, I agree. It's more the offense, even though the defense can make a difference. Yes, Barb, great point. We were talking about this earlier as well. Great minds think alike. The Cowboys won't have Tyler Guyton for the Giants game. He has a broken bone in his knee. So if they don't have Tyler Guyton, can the Giants pass rush get after the Cowboys? Big question there. Tim says, will the Giants trade Singletary, Banks, 26 first and 6 rounders, and 1st and 5th in the 27 to the Jets for Quinnen Williams and Elijah Vera Tucker? Man, that's a lot of draft capital, Tim. I do not see Joe Shane parting with that kind of capital for those players, although Quinnen is awesome. But yeah, that's a lot. But I like Tim's always coming up with these kind of deals and these trades. And believe it or not, everybody, so Tim throws this out, and obviously there's some significant assets in this trade. And sometimes when people throw out trade ideas or proposals that contain a ton of assets, it's easy to roll your eyes and say, oh, they would never do that, or why would you even ask that? But the fact is, behind the scenes, more questions and proposals get talked about that are a little bit wilder than you would imagine. Because these are just real people at the end of the day, right? So sometimes they shoot their shot and they see what the other team's going to say and they go from there. So, don't ever think that something quote unquote sounds crazy or sounds like too much. Sometimes it's really just about what are the two parties able to agree upon. So sometimes there's no harm in shooting high, right? The worst they can say is no. But Tim, I will say this. I haven't heard anything about that. And I think it would, even though Joe Shane did try to trade a first round pick for Matthew Stafford, and Cam Ward, I do think that that's a lot of assets to give up there, the 2 firsts plus all those players. But I will say one thing you're bringing up in my mind is, so what's a big unanswered question for me right now? A big unanswered question for me that would give me some level of pause and concern is the Giants' run defense and interior D line. So Roy Robertson Harris right now looks like the starting defensive lineman next to Dexter Lawrence. And then you have Elijah Chapman, Nacho, and those guys kind of rotating in. And of course, Abdul Carter has been bouncing inside and out. I don't know yet if the Giants, with Robertson Harris, with these players, I don't know yet if the Giants have solved their issue of stopping the run up front. I don't know if Robertson Harris is going to be the key that kind of helps plug that hole in the inside and unlocks everything and enables the Giants defense to get teams to 3rd and long. I still have a question about that. Darius Alexander, the rookie, is a player that you want to be excited about who can factor in there. So far, Alexander not there yet. Clearly was dealing with something all spring, didn't practice, is now just starting to be used and come on and see like a meaningful snap here and there as they ramp up into pads. So hopefully Alexander can factor in there, but you brought that to my attention there by mentioning Quinnen Williams. Like that's the position I'm still circling and looking at and saying, like, I don't know if they fix this, right? It's not the only position I have concerns about. I'm just saying, like, that's the one that I still just, I don't know. And I don't know if we're going to know until we get to week 1 against Washington. Joe says, Pat, somehow Burns was making more than TJ Watt until he signed his new contract. Well, that was Joe Shane's work. Let's see. GC Ed says, should the Giants call the Commanders about a trade for Scary Terry? You could make the call. They'd probably just, try to tax you to death for being in division. If not, just say no right off the bat. Doesn't hurt to call, but probably tax you big time. And Tim's talking about Kalijah Kancey too. Tim's on the right track as far as what they still might need. So I was talking about the Sweetener being like the wide receiver position, but Tim brings it up too, is like, hey, is interior D line solved? Joe says, Pat, Dart was playing neighbors in basketball when they were in San Diego. Should he have been playing with his bad big toe? Fair question, Joe. Fair question. Let's see. Yeah, Scattaboo today, a lot of first-team reps. They definitely like him. He's downhill. He's clearly a Daboll favorite. Like, Daboll was teasing and foreshadowing how much work he was going to get. He was like, I'm really excited to see him run today. I'm really excited to see him run today. Said it a couple times in the press conference before the practice. You can see that, how much we have been talking about Dart being Daboll's guy. Well, Scattaboo also clearly is as well. And a player who is going to be a factor one way or the other in how this offense operates. It's definitely looking like a running back by committee, but he is certainly a prominent part of that committee early on. No sign of them looking at Christian Wilkins at the moment. If there is, I'll tell you. But right now, nothing more than some interesting reports. Josina Anderson, the first to report that there was like an off-field incident that factored in to his release. So even more than just the injury there. Ja says, how have the quarterbacks that nobody wants to talk about been doing, like Winston and DeVito? Jameis threw an interception today. I mean, took a shot, tried to give a receiver a chance to make a play. He actually made a really nice play on Sunday, which was their fourth practice. Jameis, so first they get to the line, he hard double counts, and somebody jumps, so that's a false start. But then they get to the line again. He checks a couple times, checks a couple things, and checked into the exact right call, hit Bryce Ford Wheaton. This was before his injury, hit Bryce Ford Wheaton on like a skinny post from the outside for what would have been a deep touchdown, like a catch and run, kind of like a 12-yard to 15-yard pass and then a catch and run touchdown. And it was just clearly like a veteran going to work on a defense. And I asked Jameis about it. He said that he had diagnosed cover zero and he was creating some protection and solutions short on the left side in case he wasn't able to execute the throw that he saw in the window that he envisioned being open. But it was just, clinical. And that's what Jameis has, right? He's seen it all. He's done it. And like, I still want to see more Jameis. In fact, DeVito gets some reps, but really doesn't get many. And it just really doesn't make sense why they have the four quarterbacks and why they're giving, four guys reps. I mean, right now it feels so. One of the reasons people aren't talking as much about Jameis is because a lot of these days they're giving Dart a ton of work and then Jameis pops in and out. There are times where Jameis is taking more, but then like, as you saw, there was the one drive where Jameis moved the ball down the field with the offense. And then Daboll puts Dart in the red zone to get the touchdown. Now, Jameis said, I've been in the end zone. Like, he's the one who needs the reps. Like, he didn't make a big deal of it, but that's kind of the dynamic. Like, they're pushing Dart. They're trying to get Dart the work. They're giving him every opportunity to be the backup. They're developing him. They're trying to develop him at the pace that he can handle. And so it's almost like they've decided, well, Winston's done it. He doesn't need as many reps Dart does, which, yes, the rookie needs reps. But yeah, the four quarterback thing's a little bit awkward. DeVito just doesn't seem to fit on the roster and therefore doesn't get a lot of reps because of it. He did make a nice throw today. Who did he hit on the right sideline? Oh, I can't remember, but he had a nice throw to the right sideline today. How does Dart's offense in college compare to the Giants' offense? His coach was a pro coach at a couple of teams. Daboll's the offense is much more complicated and layered as far as like option routes and what the quarterback and the receiver are adjusting to based on what the defense is presenting. They're not just running like there is read option in Daboll's offense, but it's a lot of for Dart so far and what he's been applying with Daboll, a lot of clear, clean shotgun dropbacks, pocket presence, that type of thing. At Ole Miss, he was doing a lot of read option and one read, let it go, pushing the ball quickly, that type of thing, or tucking it and running it. Here he's going through more progressions, going to the backside of the plays, still able to use his legs, but in the NFL, you're not bailing out as quickly as well. But definitely, like, one thing that Dart told me that has helped him in the pre-draft process and in assimilating into Daboll's offense is that Joe Judge coaching him there at Ole Miss last year in the quarterback's room, he actually had Dart studying a lot of NFL tape. And so a lot of these college players, they're studying their own or other people's college tape, opponents, guys that have played there at Ole Miss before them, his own tape from the previous game, the previous season against that opponent, whatever it is. Judge had him studying pro tape and pro concepts. And so Dart had got a look early on at kind of what it looks like. And so these are different offenses. They're not all the same scheme. But he felt like he was getting kind of an advanced crash course. Certainly not the same as being immersed in an offense like this, where he's the one who has to have all the answers at a snap of a finger. And Daboll's offense is known for being kind of detailed and complex with a lot of layers to it. So you can see that that's what Dart is dealing with right now, is like he's mastering it and then trying to get himself to a point where he can play freely within it rather than being robotic. Hirsch, great to see you. PA says defense is going to be scary. Jay Fed says, what's the real story with the Wilkins Raiders? Foot injury, now reports of him kissing a teammate on the head. Players uncomfortable. Has got to be more to the story. I do think there is more to the story, Jay Fed. The exact details, nothing I can confirm, but definitely more is my understanding than what we know. If that makes sense. Vince, I saw your question about Evan. We talked about that already. I'm sure you heard, but yes, there has been some positive from Evan Neal. The temperature during practice really in some of these days has been anywhere from like, it'll say on your phone 89, 90, 92, 93, 94. But with you're basically in a parking lot, and with the humidity, like the heat index has you like up around 100. Like today here on Monday, July 28th was the hottest day of camp so far. It was scorching. Todd Banks says, hey, Pat, Ben Johnson time for the Bears. He is supposed to be a maniacal football genius. Let's hope. Todd, great to hear from you. Yeah, non-Giants question. We do talk all NFL here. I actually was having a conversation yesterday about the Bears with somebody who would know Chicago, and they were saying that Ben Johnson commands the room with the players there, and that he is well received by Chicago's players so far. And, despite like from the outside looking in, right, to us, we watch some of his behavior at the press conference and things like that, and you think, this is the leader of men who's going to lead the locker room in the NFL. But the early returns are strong from inside the building there with the Bears. It sounds like he's very detailed oriented, but also has a good edge to him. So is not a like constant screamer, shouter, rah guy, but he has an edge to him to kind of to get on somebody for something, or to apply emphasis that puts enough stress on the situation that it indicates that he needs that improvement. So he has that edge, but doesn't go over the line, and it's not too much of it either. So striking a good balance. That's what somebody was telling me the other day. Obviously, the key is, can he unlock the quarterback, right? Caleb Williams, like all those other things I was just talking about. Like what's the difference if you're not unlocking Caleb and getting him to play as the number 1 overall pick he is. And Williams so far up and down in training camp with the Bears, like some really good and some, we can't have that anymore. Right. So like, we know that he's always been, or, with USC and then early in his NFL career, like it looks too loose. It's too out of structure. It's too inconsistent. And so it's still inconsistent as they're going through early in training camp. And so it's Ben Johnson's job to kind of rein that in and get him, as Dart was saying he wants to do, kind of be creative within structure. That's what they need Caleb Williams to do as well. So that's really what Chicago needs. But early returns are that the team is responding to the coach. That's good. John says, hey, Pat, why does Daboll already seem so irritable? Is he better off camera? Do you notice anything different with his player interactions? John, I think, he's not cooperative in the press conferences. And I think he feels the pressure that he's under, and he is under a lot of pressure. I've said this before, but like this regime is very aware of what is written and said on television about them. And so like Daboll's been put on lists, by plenty of people as like most likely to be fired, or first to be fired, or among the top 5 most likely to be fired, right? Like he's in that mix with everybody going into the season. And so like, I think he knows that. Now, it's not all negative. Like he's not walking on eggshells out on the practice field. Like Daboll is bringing an attitude. He's bringing an energy of urgency. So that's how I would describe it. It's urgency and it's the reality. So I think remember early on after their playoff season, when they started hitting the skids and struggling, he really started taking things out behind the scenes on his assistants, right? Remember the assistant coaches, the coordinators, all those things and all of that. And so that's been his MO, to kind of lash out and be irritable, but you just don't always see it. I think the pressure, though, and also the reality of, like, he's now in year 4 of this job. He's a Belichick guy, right? That's his origins, and he's trying to be protective of himself and of the program and of the offense and right, all those things, of his legacy, of his narrative. So I think that it all comes out sometimes in him being terse and uncooperative. But his urgency on the field, like with the offense, with the pre-snap penalties, like that's about, hey, we're going to keep losing games if we don't fix this, right? So like you need that. I mean, you need to be that urgent about those things. Like you just can't have it, Joe says, Pat, you're not negative. You tell the truth. Last year's record was 3-14. You can't spin that at all. Mara, Shane, and Daboll can't handle the truth. Thanks for saying that, Joe. X-Wing, great to see you, hear from you. Thanks for being here. GCN says, let's see if the Giants O-line and D-line get steamrolled by the Eagles again. Yeah, no, I mean, that's obviously the gold standard in division right now and in the league, but also it's Dallas, it's Washington, and it's everyone on your schedule to try to turn the corner as the Giants right now. Baby steps. When is the first practice against the Jets? So the first practice against the Jets is on the 12th of August. That will be in Florham Park. And then on the 13th, they have a second practice at the Giants in East Rutherford. Jay Fed says Daboll seemed pleasant with Kay Adams today. I didn't watch the interview yet. Be curious to see what he was asked. And did anything make him uncomfortable? Burns could have a big year as well, possibly. Yes. A2 says, hey, Pat, what's up, brother? Glad to see AI hasn't replaced you yet. Yeah, exactly. We'll see how long that takes, A2. Ja Soul says, shout out to Hooks and the H-Town Rub. Appreciate that, Ja. Yeah, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, man. We're glad to have Hooks on board. Grateful to the support, Jared. And like I said, support our sponsors and especially support our fellow Giants fan, Jared, down there in Houston. Telling you, man, if you're grilling, if you're tailgating, whatever it is, this is going to add flavor to your day, flavor to your pregame, flavor to your tailgate, and to your evening while you're watching your Giants play ball. Even those of you coming out to training camp, get the rub going, bring that meat out, grill out, tailgate those practices. Wait till it gets a little bit cooler, though. Intel says, how is the team looking? Honest answer. Good to see you, Intel. The Giants are, the arrow is pointing up right now. They've made some progress here. Let's see if it continues. The arrow is pointing up, Intel. Barb, everything is pointed to Mike Kafka. Like he's the one who's been calling plays the whole time. So there hasn't been any announcement on that, but that's what it looks like. Tuto, always setting an example and being so supportive of our channel. Says massive salutes and big respect to Big Boss Pat and all diehard Giants fans in America. Greetings from me and my mates in North Italy, currently in training camp, 4:14 a.m. I can see Tuto right now, like banging out, 100 push-ups, super chatting, talking ball, crushing like 5 egg whites before going to rugby training in Italy, right? Tuto, am I right? Is that the morning routine? Really appreciate you, man. Seriously, you're a diehard day oneer. Yeah, Barb, it's Mike Kafka, unless something crazy changes. Let's see. Joe says Pat only uses AI, Pat, for the Thursday shows. An AI Pat robot when he has to go into the office at the Daily News. Yeah, exactly. Well, Atone, on the subject of Hyatt, Jalen Hyatt is a guy who, like, you want to see his potential turn into production on the field. And listen, he was frustrated with his lack of a role last year for sure, and he deserved to be, but he's got to be healthy. So, like, right now he's not healthy, so that's the tough part. But yeah, like, a healthy Jalen Hyatt makes their wide receiver room look a lot different, right? But my point too is, like, you just want a deep enough team of NFL talent so that you're not one injury away from disaster, kind of like the Giants O-line has been with Thomas in recent years. Ja, thank you, man. Thanks for saying that you're glad I am okay. Yeah, that was scary. Yeah, Mike Garafolo was funny. He said, I told him about the incident where I had the heat exhaustion, and he said, "Come on, Pat, best shape of your life. This is the time of the year. Everyone says they're in the best shape of their lives. Like, you got to get there with us." That was pretty funny. Intel says, "Pat, drink a lot of water, 6 bottles a day, no coffee." Oh, I can't have no coffee. Come on, Intel, killing me. Right. No matter how good the defense is, the NFL is an offensive league. You need an offense that scores 24 points a game or more. Agreed, GCN. Agreed. O-line depth still a priority. Yes. Jimbo, what's going on? Jimbo Slice. He says, Jameis loved your question yesterday. Yeah, I think I think guys appreciate when you notice, like, the details of these plays that they're making. It shows them that you're watching and you're paying attention. And, that was just a really, really smart and nice play by him. Like, that was a play that he created himself with all of the checks he made, and that another quarterback, would not have, or likely would not have seen. And so I think he appreciated, like, that's the thing. If you genuinely watch, if you generally watch practices and watch the games, and you note the details of, like, what guys are doing, how they're chipping in, what they're sacrificing, factors that, like, if a guy was a backside block on a big run, like those types of things, players, coaches, front office people in NFL and in football, like, that shows people that you care and you're invested and you're paying attention. It means that you're invested in what they're doing, and you're not just there for clicks or there for the headline or there to watch the quarterback, right? It shows them that a little bit about what you're watching too. Let's see. Jimbo says, "Give me the scoop on the UDFAs who has a realistic shot to make the roster. Juice Wells was a stud at Carolina, got overshadowed at Ole Miss, but I firmly believe he could be lightning in a bottle for us." I mean, Bo Collins is definitely the guy. Wide receiver who's made a difference. Clemson, Notre Dame, the quarterbacks all clearly, trust him and are going to him. And he's got, like, the measurables to, it looks like, become a factor. We'll see how quickly he can do that in the regular season games. But definitely Bo Collins is a guy to watch. And then let's see. I had mentioned in the spring, Dylan Cambry, a guy who was exciting. I'll be interested to watch him. Might end up being like a practice player. Bo Collins, though, is the answer. He's the wide receiver. Let me see his measurables here. 6'3", 206, and someone who has caught passes from all of them. Basically Russell Wilson, Jaxson Dart, Jameis Winston all seem to find him and go to him. So that's my answer there. And like I said, they need depth at receiver. So if he can really step up and be not just another guy at receiver, all the better. Oh, we got Tuto, another super chat. Thank you, Tuto. He says, Pat, morning routine, 3:30 a.m., 2 miles uphill incline, 5 miles tracks jog, 1 hour bike to 1 hour break to chat with my New York Giant fellows in America. Grubs, back to the gym, hit the irons 2 hours, 2 hours meetings and rest, 4-hour practices. This man is a machine. He's all about rugby, weights, and football. Come on. Who can't love Tuto? Appreciate you, Tuto. Thank you so much, man, for that support. And man, I was kind of half joking about the routine, but like it was even like triple and quadruple what I thought it was. I'm going to take it all. I'm going to say, let's see, 3:30 a.m., dude. Holy cow. I tell you, I couldn't do that in a million years. Wake up at 3:30 a.m. like daily for training. PA, yeah, no, Winston threw a pick, but I promise you, dude, Jameis, like he's an exciting player. Like I think you would like Jameis being your quarterback, honestly. Joe says Pat Daboll is supposed to fix Winston's picks. He coached Josh Allen. He hasn't spent much time working with Jameis at all compared to the other guys. Is what it like on the field is what it looks like. He's just not getting as many reps. Yeah, Josh Soul points out he has thrown the least amount of interceptions and OTAs in camp. Crazy how that works out. Seems like folks were waiting on him to throw a pick instead of another play. Again, I get it. Yeah, no, Jameis hasn't been throwing picks left and right. So that's not an accurate thing. Michael says body needs 40 ounces of liquid per day, especially on summer days. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, no, listen, something like that can be embarrassing. It's frustrating. It was scary, but it definitely woke me up. The weird thing about it was I was having like a really responsible week. Like I was preparing myself to be back in the heat, back in the grind. I was packing snacks, packing extra waters. I thought I was hydrating. I think it was just too much coffee on too hot a day. Jackson says, does it seem like James Hudson is just being a competitor, or is there reason to believe he's actually pissing his teammates off? Jackson, great question. So I actually talked to Runyon about this because John Runyon Jr. played 2 years at Michigan with Hudson. And he said, he's always had this kind of energy and that it is contagious in a good way. Now, he did say like he crossed the line and went too far in OTAs. And, you could even see today, like after one of their good periods, he came off the field and he was like, when you see guys with smelling salts, when they kind of pop up like this and they look wired, like he was shouting, he was yelling to fans, like, that's what I'm on. This is over with. Like, firing himself up, but really like having an out of body experience, and, there's nothing wrong with being intense, but you can tell like they are talking a lot about guys being, not fighting and coming to that edge, but not crossing it. And today, even with all those conversations, even with Daboll looking like he was talking to Hudson one-on-one, like he's still driving Thibodeau into the dirt, knocking Thibodeau's helmet off, nearly starting a fight again. So there's definitely conversations happening with him about how they want him to like rein it in a little bit. But it almost seems like the end result of having a personality like that in the room is a positive one, as long as they don't let him cross the line. So you're onto something there though, Jackson. Like that's a really good question. Like I would say it's not like no one is pissed off by it, right? Like there are people out there saying like, James, great intensity, chill, right? Like there's some of those conversations happening for sure. Tuto says, Pat, rugby union, super rugby athletes, different species, mate. We're built like a tank and our purse usually twice as heavy as lame NFL players, mate. You guys, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's insane. I need some of that in my life though, Tuto. I need that routine. Jackson says, from minicamp to now, Hudson is starting to come across more and more of a problem, but maybe that's what this unit needs. 40 days. Yeah, well, it's interesting too, is that like he's not going to be on the field once Thomas is healthy either, right? So he's making the most of some reps that he won't be getting relatively soon. Did see him work a little bit right tackle in one-on-ones today as well, because obviously like he's technically supposed to be their swing tackle. So they're working him on that as well in one-on-ones. But yeah, you're right. No, it's interesting. I think they haven't had Burns and him matched up. Those were the two who got into it in the spring, and then it was Kayvon and Illuminor. Today it was Thibodeau and Hudson. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like I said, and I wrote this going into camp too, Daboll and the Giants, like they need more intensity up on the line from both sides, especially the O-line, but on both sides. And working on that and trying to instill toughness and nastiness. Like these guys are tough. They're football players. But trying to instill nastiness comes with a certain amount of, risk. Like guys are going to cross the line. They're humans. They're putting their hands on another person's pads and then tossing people and punching their hands out. And like, it's violent and people are going to get upset. And sometimes it's going to take things personally and you're going to cross the line, those types of things. So it does happen, especially when you're trying to gear your team up to a level that you're not at yet. Right. So Hudson's good for that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Needs to simmer a little. Andrew Thomas, when is he going to be ready to go? As far as I know, like Jackson, I saw him the other day stretching on the field on the side. Like he's not practicing at all yet, but it was a good sign to see him. Hadn't seen him outside during a practice on the grass at all, like even standing there prior to that. I know that this has always been tracking to early August and then hopefully getting in some preseason work. And I mean game work, at least a little bit before the regular season starts. I don't know how soon that's going to be. I actually meant to ask Daboll that today, but so many other things were more top of mind and pressing. But that'll probably be one of my main questions for him on Tuesday prior to their sixth practice, because we are getting to that time when you want to start seeing Thomas at least ramp up a little bit on the field, right? Michael says over under 650 rushing yards for Cam Scatterbo this year. Maybe with his passes, he's a damn bowling ball, a human bowling ball. Michael, good question. I mean, you're saying if he stays healthy, because like I said, I think one question for him is like, Wan'Dale Robinson, think of him at receiver, talented, but undersized and not fast enough to make up for that undersized nature sometimes. Scatterbo, a guy who has power, toughness, and hands and some get up to him, but at that size, is he going to be able to survive running the way he is in the NFL? That's one question. Two, will he go over or under that number? That's an interesting number. I think because he would be a part of the passing game as well, you're talking about that type of yardage being something that if he were not just in a rotation, but earned, let's say a half of the snaps per game at running back, then, does he get to something like what you're talking about, both catching passes and running? Could this be a guy who has a 30 some catches and, I don't know, over 100 carries, right? Could he be in that category? And then what would he do with that? I think at the moment, he looks like somebody they want to use a lot. It looks like somebody that the team likes his energy. And John Runyon said to me today, flat out, he said, like, we need those nasty yards, and we think he can help us get those. So, does he get to a number like you're talking about, or is he more situationally impactful, short yardage, pass catching, pass blocking, those types of things. Hooks, what's up, Jared? He says, what about kicker? How is that competition looking, or is it even a competition? Haven't really seen any kicking, so don't know about that yet. Gano, McTamney, kind of both out there on the side, and not much going on with the kickers, so we don't see much of that yet. Obviously, Graham Gano, if he's healthy and able, he's the guy. But if he's not, then it would be McTamney at this point, based on how their roster is situated. But we haven't seen a competition develop there yet. Or there just hasn't been kicking really going on in any of these periods. Eric Gray hasn't been out there at all. And frankly, doesn't seem to fit in this rotation at all. No update on exactly where he is at the moment, but has not been on the field since the start of training camp, was injured and out late in the spring as well. So keep you updated there, but definitely Scatterbo, Singletary, and Tracy already all ahead of him on the depth chart and not slipping behind him either, even if he were healthy at this point. So that's how I feel about that. Right. When I asked Daboll about Andrew Thomas, he will say, I'd say all of our players are progressing nicely. You're probably right, Jackson. Yeah, no, we're not. The Giants aren't getting anything for Eric Gray. There's no doubt about it. Guys, another great chat here. This was brought to you here, Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, by MyBookie, by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and by Sal Loretta for Men. Let me remind you how you can get these great deals with all of our sponsors at boomchaga.com. Whether you want some cold teas or whether you want the liquid supplement here over my shoulder, you're going to go to boomchaga.com, use the code TalkinBall25, and that'll get you 25% off your first order on the subscribe and save option. Support your immune system and fight inflammation with the benefits of Boom Chaga. Fuel your body with nature's best and feel the difference. Also brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie's always rolling out great deals, great winnings. If you're looking to bet, you're looking to win, whether it's NFL, WWE, whether it's hit into the casino or using any of their unique money boosters, whether it's the money bag, the partner picks, they have daily bet boosts, and of course, UFC, WWE, really the best place to bet those. You're going to go to mybookie.com and use the promo code Leonard. That's my last name, Leonard. You're going to use the promo code Leonard on mybookie.com, or click that link, the affiliate link in all of my profiles, and sign up that way. As a first-time subscriber using my code, you will get some significant benefits on the site right off the bat. Also brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices at Hooks Rub on Instagram. It's grill season. It's tailgating season. Whether it's Smokin' Sweetness, Midnight, H-Town, Mad Cow, or Cajun Red, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices has award-winning flavors, going back to seasoning competitions, steak competitions, barbecue and backyard competitions. This is the flavor that everybody wants a part of. Like I said, Jared from Houston, Giants fan, diehard, and a long-time Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard listener and supporter. This is his company. I want you to support him. He supports us. Go to hooksrub.com and use the code Talkin Ball at checkout for 15% off discount on those great flavors. And like I said, we got the brisket t-shirt here. The gear at hooksrub.com is just as good as the flavors. And last but not least, of course, brought to you by Sal Loretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey. Luxury menswear and tailoring. If you caught me on NBC New York with John Chandler, or check out my Instagram, you'll see me dressed to the nines in my Sal Loretta. Absolutely the best. Nowhere but Sal Loretta. If you're trying to look great for wedding, special occasion, if you're going on television, whatever it is, if you're trying to dress in luxury, trying to look good, Go to Salaretta for men. Also, here we go. No Mets, no Jets checks in with a $5 super chat right here and says, what's up? Thanks, No Mets, always supporting us. Hooks is checking out, says, have a great evening. Mark asks me, why did I ask Dexter Lawrence about his contract? Mark, that was a question born out of knowledge of the way that the market is shifting and working for defensive tackles. And also knowing that a couple years ago in 2023, you remember Dexter Lawrence did not show up early on in the spring when he was looking for a new deal and eventually did get one. And so this spring was monitoring that situation with Dexter because he was here, but he wasn't on the field really doing much other than individuals. He wasn't doing any teams. This is in the spring. He was in the building, so he wasn't holding out, but it was kind of curious to see, okay, his contract already has slid far down the ranks of highest paid defensive tackles. Is this going to be an issue? Is it going to be raised? Is it going to be discussed? And having conversations with sources and sifting through what could be and what was, Dexter Lawrence showed up at this first day of training camp. He was here. He wasn't holding out. He wasn't making any kind of grandstand and saying, I'm not practicing because of the contract. But when I asked him about it, you saw quickly, like within 24 hours, $3 million in incentives added to his deal. Seemed like something that more than just there were people I wasn't the only one who knew that this was an issue, a percolating issue, a possible issue, and something that just stared you in the face. Because really, Mark, the way that the market works in the NFL and in these pro sports too is like, think of if you or I were sitting next to each other at work, right? We were colleagues. Let's say you knew you were better. Let's say you and I are both plumbers and we're in a union, and you know that you're better than I am, and we have the same job and you're better than I am, and you have more tenure. But for some reason, I found a loophole, the boss is my uncle, whatever it is, and I'm making more than you are. Not only do you know you're better than I am, but everybody we work with in the company knows you're better. And yet here I am with a higher salary than you. And so in these meritocracies, in these leagues, in these environments where you have free agency, you have the ability to hold out for a new contract, you can become a free agent and go to the highest bidder, and the market can get set for you. What happens is players and agents, they understand what they deserve when it comes to how much this player makes, how much that player makes, and how much your client makes. Like Lamar Jackson would never make less than Baker Mayfield, right? And, Patrick Mahomes wouldn't make less than, Sam Darnold. There's an order of things. And so if you look at the over the cap contract table, and that's my favorite place to go for contracts, overthecap.com. If you look at overthecap.com at defensive tackle, so think about this. Dexter Lawrence been second team All-Pro. He's always mentioned in that like top 3 to 5 range. Some people think he's the best defensive tackle in the game right now. If not, if you're higher than top 3, top 5, some people think he's top 1. But if you go by average money per year right now at defensive tackle, it's Chris Jones, Milton Williams of the Patriots, Nnamdi Madubuike of the Ravens, Aleem McNeil of the Lions, Derek Brown of the Panthers, Quinnen Williams of the Jets, Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans, DeForest Buckner of the Colts, Deron Payne of the Commanders, tied with Dexter Lawrence of the Giants, and then Leonard Williams in right behind him. So you can see, Mark, that's why I asked, because when you look at that chart, like if you were Dexter's agent or Dexter himself or Dexter's wife or his brother or his family member or whatever, if you were looking at that chart and you showed it to Dex, you'd say, wait, how are you not over this guy? How are you not over that guy? And that's just why. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but there are just certain factors like that like when it's staring you in the face, like it has to be resolved in some way. And frankly, I didn't even think it was resolved in the way maybe I expected, but it definitely was throwing a bone to the issue of like, yeah, we see this, like we're not ignorant of this, like from the Giants end. JDJ says the way Carter looks, I want to extend his contract now. Yeah, like if you can get like a Jared Verse type impact from him this year, man, that would be amazing, Because like Verse had some weaknesses in the running game, but that pass rush, that energy, the motor, right? Those kind of things, game-changing plays, like that's what you think maybe you can get from Carter. Mark says, I know Dex deserved the money. He's the best. Thanks for the info. You got it, Mark. Yeah, no, I was, and also Mark, to be honest, that was one of those things like I would have loved to have break the news of the contract sweetener happening, but I was dancing around it, but like I couldn't get to, was it happening? Was it going to happen? Was Dex going to have to do something for it? Like all the, you know what I mean? So sometimes you can just get to the news and report it. But at that point, it hadn't been done yet. And I was close to it, but just didn't have it. So what I had was the ability to just dig more into it, ask Dex himself, and then go from there. So that's what I did. But guys, this has been an amazing chat. Thank you so much. We are back here on Talkin Ball Live. The Giants showing reason for cautious optimism, some hope with the offensive line. Abdul Carter, exciting. Art Green, Darius Slayton making one-handed catches. Cam Scatterbo getting first-team reps. Exciting times here early in the Giants summer. This is Pat Leonard from the Daily News and the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast. Continue to look for more content here on the channel. Whether we do a guest episode this week or not, we will be live again Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time here, Talkin Ball Live. We'll be bringing guests on Talkin Ball throughout August, throughout training camp, throughout, on live. So not just on guest podcasts, but also on Talkin Ball Live for all of you to ask questions of, maybe some people from the beat, some other experts, players, people like that. So hopefully bring you some fresh and exciting and fun content as we go. Remember to subscribe and like. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, PLN NFL. Like while you are here, while we are live. That helps tell Giants fans out there who don't know about us yet what we are doing here. And also, if you don't already, please follow Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You know where to find me there for the latest on the Giants and on the NFL. This has been Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News and the Talkin Ball podcast. Signing off for now. If I didn't get to your questions, promise on Thursday night, we will get rolling right back into it, pick up right where we left off. Thank you so much for the support and for being here. See you next time, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. See you next time.